In this video, we're going to take a look at using blending modes here in Photoshop with AI images. Here you can see that I have a photo of San Antonio, and then I put an AI airplane in this image. I want to talk about how the airport is expanding in my piece, so I wanted to create something that had an airplane in the city. But we can see here that the AI created airplane doesn't look that great. Now, with AI in Photoshop, when we generate something, you can see that if I hide this, we can see that it generates the edges of the piece around the original image as well. But that doesn't work so well with blending. If I go up here and try to blend this together, we can still see that box in a majority of our blends. So what we're going to do are a couple of tricks to help this blend. Now, personally, I like to do this with a few different layers. So what I'm going to do first off is I'm going to double click on this. I'm going to call this original. That way I remember what my original layer looks like. Next up, I'm going to duplicate this by right clicking and select duplicate layer. I'm going to call this rasterized. And you guessed it, I'm going to rasterize this layer. To do so, right click and select rasterize layer. Next up, I want to get rid of this mask. So I'm going to click on the mask, right click and select delete layer mask. I'm going to come down to select subject and create a brand new mask. Now if I turn my other layers off, we can see we have the airplane on its own. Now what I want to do is create a few different variations of this. So I'm going to right click again, duplicate layer again. I'm going to call this blended. I'm going to do the same thing, right click, duplicate layer, and say highlights. I'm going to hide my highlights layer for now and go to my blended layer. With this, I'm going to drag it to my background and then hide my other layers. Next up, I'm going to use my blend mode to blend it with my background. You'll need to choose the mode that works best for you, but I like linear burn. I'm going to pull down my rasterized layer here, turn on the visibility with that, and then go to my opacity and slightly lower that down. Now we can see how the blended layer's colors are coming through in that rasterized layer and starting to make it look like we have something that's a little bit better here. Let's bring back our highlights. I'm going to drag that layer under the original, again leaving that original layer off, and turn on my highlights layer. This hides the work we just did, but that's okay. I want to add in some highlights, so I'm going to go to my eyedropper tool and select the orange from the skyline. I'm going to go to my gradient tool, go up here to my gradient options, basics, and choose a gradient to transparent background. I'm going to click and drag. Here you can see that the gradient has gone over my highlights. That's okay, I'm just using this for a reference. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use this mask here, hold down the Alt key and drag it up to my gradient fill. I'm going to replace the mask layer, and now that highlight is on top of the gradient. I can hide this highlights layer now, I just needed it for the highlight, and you can see that we now have a gradient fill. Now what I can do on that gradient fill layer, turn the opacity down, and then adjust the angle of my gradient to look good on the airplane. So I just get a little bit of a highlight coming. I'm going to turn that opacity down just a little bit, just so I have a hint of glow. Now we can see that our piece is blending together. It looks like it all goes together. And just to see the difference, that's why I kept that original. I'm going to click on that original now and look at how much different this looks. We can see that it doesn't look like it's really there, and here we're starting to get there. Now, if I were doing this for real, I'd probably tweak it a little bit more than this, but you can see the difference that blend modes with AI makes. That's it for this time. See you again for another quick tip.